Hello and welcome to this, which is our very first Business Horizons session. And this stands as one of 8 sessions which we've got coming to you live over the next few weeks. Now, we are live across the globe. We've had registrations from all the way from all 4 corners. And it's fantastic that you've been able to join us. So my name is Jeremy Ambrose. I'm Director at Entrepreneurial Spark, and we are running this Space Accelerator program on behalf of the UK Space Agency. And in partnership with Entrepreneurial Spark, we have the University of Strathclyde. Our aim for these events is quite simple, to help you grow within a sector, to leverage diversification into the space industry, and to bolster and support a growing sector with new innovators, with different thinkers, and to break down those silos that have maybe been created across the globe, to create that hive mindset mentality to get you over your next barrier towards growth. We have a fantastic event lined up for you today. We're going to be exploring the topic of mindset and thinking differently, and we're going to bring in some expert panels. But there's a few ways you can get involved. You're most likely watching on the web page on a YouTube browser. So if you wouldn't mind just clicking the settings and making sure that you're in high def and that you can see me nice and clearly, that should just be on the cog down at the bottom right of your screen right now. Also, we'll be running the Slido. So Slido is an interactive tool where you can ask questions of the panel and also me, and we're also going to go live with an entrepreneur later on to get his thoughts and feelings on what he's just seen in terms of the video module. You will be able to watch this again on the YouTube channel. And if you are enjoying what you're seeing, you want to share your thoughts and continue the discussion, then please do share your thoughts on social media at eSpark Global, across both Facebook, Instagram, on all of the other channels. So thanks so much for joining us. And do get involved. The more you put in, the more you'll get out. And that goes for anything. If you pick up on something today that you want to put into action straight away, do it. Don't just sit there. Go and put something into action, whether it's a learn, whether it's a tool that you picked up from, then just go and put it into action, because that's the whole thing about this program. It's just putting thoughts into action. The topic today, we're going to be talking about thinking differently, and it is a topic that's very close to our hearts, certainly at Entrepreneurial Spark. We always start with mindset, because before any behavior, before any action, before anything that you do, whether it be in business, whether it be in life, you have to set the right mindset to get the best out of the action that you take. So it's a really important topic of conversation. We're going to delve into it a little bit deeper, and hopefully the outcomes that we're going to achieve, and you'll be able to tell us if we achieve this or this. You'll be able to get a great understanding of the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset, how this applies to your business, not their business, your business, how it affects your business. Learn how to shift your thinking and develop an entrepreneurial mindset, and discover how to identify common thinking errors and how to untangle them. More on thinking errors as we go through this, because they are very common. We all have them, and we will just describe those a little bit more as we get further into the session. We're going to be speaking to some live guests as well, and as a quick overview of who we're going to be speaking to, we've got Lucy Rose Walker, CEO of School of Code. We've got Gilletta Broomfield, co-founder at Gold Global, and then we've got an entrepreneur within the space sector, Alan Whiteside, who's the easy for me to say, the innovation director at Stannovation. But before we get into that, we're going to show you a video module. And this video module has been put together from entrepreneurs, again, around the globe. And you'll notice that there's a little celebration of International Women's Day, as we thought it would be pertinent. So a lot of the entrepreneurs and the people that you hear from today are women. So it's fantastic to be part of, and we want to celebrate certainly the diversification and diversity within the space sector today. So without further ado, I do want to take you straight into the video module and show you what we mean by mindset within the entrepreneurial space. As you go through this, be thinking about how this is pertinent for your business, your mindset, and ask yourself, what should I be doing differently with this new information that I've been given? So yeah, roll VT.
Forward technology like never before. If we are to continue to leverage the opportunities in front of us, we need to engage our mindset and continue to shrink the innovation cycle and bring new technologies to market faster and smarter. So how can we change the way we think about the art of the possible? Let's explore mindset. Sometimes when things don't go right for us in business, it can be something as simple as how we think about what we can or can't achieve that's slipping us up. So if we could master our mindset then, could we have a competitive advantage in business? Let's explore that. So behind every business, there is an entrepreneur, and behind that entrepreneur, there's a mindset, your mindset. And your mindset is responsible for any preconceived ideas you've got about whether or not you're going to be able to succeed or fail, what you can or can't achieve. So you can kind of think of your mindset a little bit like your best friend, or perhaps your worst enemy, because it's either going to be there spurring you on and cheering you from the sidelines, or filling you with doubt and worry. And when you're starting to run a business, particularly in a sector like space, when some of the technologies that you're going to be working on perhaps haven't even been invented yet, being confident in the things that you haven't done before and being able to push on and do them anyway is crucial to your success. You can kind of think of your mindset a little bit like an engine room, because depending on how often you fuel it and how often you maintain it will have a knock-on effect on just how fast and how far you can drive your business forward. And the most successful entrepreneurs, they know this, and they take time to work on their mindset. They take time to foster the right conditions to help them to build resilience. Resilience is crucial for businesses that are wanting to grow. But the good news is that if you haven't got a resilient mindset now, it's something that you can grow, it's something that you can work on. Developing a strong entrepreneurial mindset is something that's in the gift of all of us. So let's look at how you can start to do that. One of the main things that slips people up is thinking errors, how they think about the reality around them. So let's explore exactly what a thinking error is and how you can overcome any thinking errors that you're experiencing.
A thinking error is a negative group of thoughts that builds itself into a cycle and can start to make you feel bad and behave differently as well. And they're really common, and they're not normally grounded on anything in reality. They're just fed by what's going on in your head. Every single one of the thousands of entrepreneurs that we've worked with has experienced them. So don't feel bad if this feels like you some of the time or a lot of the time. It's really common. And the reason it's really common in entrepreneurs is that we're taking risks, we're having to learn things that we don't know how to do, we're out of our comfort zones a lot, and that can bring up things like doubt and fear and those types of feelings, which can lead to thoughts which go around in your head and build into negative cycles. So some good examples are perfectionism, which can be driven by a fear of failure. This has to be perfect, otherwise it's not going to work or it's going to be a disaster. Jumping to conclusions or mind reading, where we think we know what someone else is thinking, even though we don't really have any basis for doing that. And catastrophization is a really common one, where we think that the worst outcome is going to happen based on, again, on no real evidence and no reflection on real life. So some really common things which can trip us up day to day. They lead to procrastination, they lead to indecision, they lead to behaviors which are not conducive to moving forward and growing our business. So there's 3 really good ways that you can escape if you find yourself in the grip of a thinking error. The first is to look at the self-talk that you are doing inside your own head. So how are you talking to yourself? How are you describing the situation? And look at that from the point of view of, if someone else was talking to you in that way, or if someone else was describing the situation like that, would you agree? Are they kind words or are they unkind words? And how do you feel about that? And very often just thinking about that is enough to shift you away from how you're thinking and into a different mindset. The second thing that you can do is actually to talk to someone else about it. And this is probably the best way of untangling a thinking error, is just to go to a friend, a coach, a mentor, a business contact and go, I've got this thing in my head and I can't work it out. Can I just talk to you about it? Share what it is and allow them to help you to rationalize it and get to some form of action. And the third thing that you can do is to look at the language that you're using to describe it. So many of these thoughts are bound up in the words that we use to describe them. So try looking at this from a completely different perspective. Imagine that you are a different person, whether that be a hero or someone that you admire, or a different type of entrepreneur, and look at the situation from their perspective. And that might just be enough to pull you out of the irrational train of thinking that you've got yourself into and give yourself a different perspective.
So you've just heard from Mike there regarding what thinking errors are, what to look out for, and how you can start to try and tackle them. We're now going to hear from a number of entrepreneurs who've actually experienced these thinking errors firsthand. And they're going to talk about how it derailed them at times, but crucially, what they were able to do to get those pesky thinking errors under control.
The challenges that I face in entrepreneurial life in terms of mindsets have definitely been things like imposter syndrome. So am I the right person? Do I have the right skills? So those sorts of things do hold me back. Not as much as they used to, but it's still definitely there every now and again, and can sometimes put a few stumbling blocks in the way of my vision of where I see the business and myself going.
So one of my key mindset challenges is analysis paralysis. So one of my strengths is that I am a learner. I love to learn. I love to do research, which is great for both my profession because I'm a lawyer, as well as, being able to build my expertise. But sometimes you get bogged down in that learning and trying to figure out, okay, well, I need to do another course or I need to do some more research, as opposed to just doing. So one of the phrases that's really resonated with me is done is better than perfect. And so, that kind of perfection, procrastination, getting out of that mode and saying, okay, I'm going to do it. This is, I think in tech circles, it's a minimum viable product, I think is what they call it. Having something that is your product A, version A, and it may not be, you're never going to get to the best, because best is a journey, not a destination. But just putting it out there and, building on it, getting customer feedback and just taking those actions. And so that's definitely been a mindset shift for me.
The way I tend to tackle anything that limits me or just grow beyond it, I'm really aggressive about being vulnerable and getting help when I need it. And for me, that doesn't always feel great. It's hard to be the one who, when everybody looks like they've got it all together, to be the one being honest and saying, hey, I really need help here. But I've found that actually has been a real blessing for me and a real benefit for me, because then I get the help that I need, and I also can immediately confront things, as opposed to sort of pretending like I'm not affected. And as a result, I stay in it longer, where I'm just sort of like, hey, me right here, I need help. As much as it doesn't look great or feel great on the surface, having people come in and say, okay, we're going to help you press through this, has been invaluable for me.
I always go from 0 to 100, and it's a bad habit that I have. So just helping me to sit back, actually look at the big picture and take those steps, those milestones, those targets, those goals, to actually getting me to where I need to go.
If I could go back to the start of my entrepreneurial journey, the advice I would give myself is perfection without action is useless. Stop focusing on doing the best or meeting this invisible standard that you have for yourself. It's great to have high standards, but it's better to be able to execute. And then the other thing I would say is action without reflection is also useless, because sometimes you get into that mindset of, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm ticking these things off my to-do list, and then I'm moving on to the next. But taking the time to reflect on what you did and to say, okay, this is what I did, how I did well, these are the areas I could improve, then that helps you to make sure that you're not just doing things, but you're learning and that you're growing.
So my mindset as I've developed as an entrepreneur has definitely changed. I think at the very beginning, I was really overcome with fear and worry about if things go wrong. So my biggest learning has definitely been, I suppose, a change in mindset around how I look at things. So I don't look at things and think, what if it goes wrong? So there's definitely more of a step change in terms of the mindset around innovation and growth. So that's one thing that's I've really I think I've honed, I'd like to think, over the last few years.
So I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the warts and all real life experiences of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with. We are now going to move on and look at the differences between fixed and growth mindset, because certainly a lot of the thinking errors can occur when you're in a fixed mindset state. So let's find out the difference.
So the characteristics of fixed versus growth mindset can be broken down into kind of 5 facets, and they are how people approach skills or challenges, effort, feedback, and setbacks. So if I kind of take them one by one, if you look at approaching new skills, the fixed mindset person will think that actually skills are something you're born with. They're fixed. They're not malleable. But those people with a growth mindset, the skills come from hard work and can always be improved. The second facet is challenges. So how do people with a fixed mindset approach a challenge? Well, they avoid them. They could be found out or could reveal that lack of skill, and they tend to give up easily. But over on the growth mindset angle, people embrace challenge. They see it as an opportunity to grow and become more persistent in what they do, building their resilience and tenacity while they go at challenges. Third facet is how people approach effort. So people with a fixed mindset believe that actually effort is unnecessary because what they've got is what they will always have in terms of skills. It's putting in effort is something that they do when they're not good enough at something. But over on the growth mindset, effort is essential to get you to where you want to get to. It's a path to mastery or to get good at something. The fourth facet of the characteristics of fixed versus growth mindset is how people approach feedback. Those people with a fixed mindset get quite defensive about feedback. They take it personally. They look for the personal attack angle when they're being given feedback. But those with a growth mindset, they find it useful. They look for something to learn from within that feedback and go and try something different. They identify areas to improve. And finally, the fifth facet of the characteristics of people with a fixed versus growth mindset is how they approach setbacks. So on the fixed mindset side, people who experience a setback will probably blame others, and they'll get discouraged by the process. But those with a growth mindset, when they incur a setback, they use it as a bit of a wake-up call. They work harder next time to get to where they want to get to, and they look for the learns again in the setback and go, what could I have done differently to get me where I want to get to? I think the top tip is to just be conscious when you may be in the grip of a fixed mindset and ask yourself the question,
why am I saying this? Why am I thinking this? Or why am I doing this? And therefore find the path to moving yourself towards more of a growth mindset angle when you need to. Simply just making it a conscious decision to be either in a fixed or a growth mindset will help you enormously. Simply just having something on the table just to remind you about the growth versus fixed mindset, that little tool that just, or a little, it's almost like a flashing light. Even if it's just a word, it's a little flashing light to say, stop what you're doing, think about where you are right now. How can you move yourself to have more of a growth mindset about this process or challenge that you have in front of you? So simply just making it more conscious, and a more conscious decision will help you.
So we've heard about fixed and growth mindset there. We also now know what thinking errors are and what we can do about them. And we've heard from entrepreneurs talk firsthand about the impacts it's had on them. So what's really resonated with you today? What are the mindset slips and trips holding you back? And what must you now put into place to give yourself the best possible chance of success?
So you've just heard from Faye and the module on mindsets and behaviors and thinking differently. And it's really relevant for all sectors, not just space, but particularly you'll find that certainly within the space sector, there's a lot of imposter syndrome. So many technical founders, people with great engineering backgrounds try to make that transition into business. And suddenly you think, am I in the right place? Do I know what I need to know heading into a business? And hopefully you've got few tools and a few ways forward to support you with your thinking in that way. We are now going to bring in our two guest experts, and they have a lot of experience with the mindset of entrepreneurs, but also they've been on their own journeys within it. I'm going to bring in Lucy Rose first, and she's going to give you a quick intro to her, and then we're going to ask her some questions. Lucy Rose, are you there?
I am here. Thank you for having me, Jeremy.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, quick intro. Go ahead.
Yep. So I am the Chief Operating Officer at School of Code. In terms of, I suppose if I was to give you a line on my background and what I do now is being a part of amazing teams that transform people's lives, and doing that by focusing on the mindset.
Wow. Yeah, pretty powerful stuff. Thank you. I'm now going to bring in Gilletta as well. Now, Gilletta is the co-founder of Gold Global. But Gilletta, you are live from Costa Rica. Please do not swear. No, it's amazing to have you here. If you could just give us a quick one-liner on exactly what you do, that'd be super.
I'm now a coach, Jeremy, as you know, and you also know I describe myself as a recovering entrepreneur because I spent much of my career helping large companies innovate. So I'm recovering extremely well. In terms of purpose, I'm into impact coaching. So most of the work I do now is around regenerative leadership, focusing on CEOs that have purpose-driven ambitions around people, planet, prosperity. So that's where I focus. So space is something that I'm very interested in. By the way, the closest that I got to space is when I practiced jumping out of an aircraft in Hong Kong, only to break my leg, but don't worry about that.
Okay. Yeah, I've not got any nearer, to be honest with you. Mr. Rose, I just want to come to you because you've been on your own entrepreneurial journey in your career. How important has it been for you to be able to think differently, certainly when approaching innovation?
For me, I suppose thinking differently and innovation are kind of two things that kind of intertwine, essentially. Because if you're trying to innovate, then the idea is that you are trying to essentially think differently about something. So it's pretty important through all walks of life as we continue to create different products, different services, different applications of heading into space and how we can support that. So for me, it sort of comes in on a daily basis. in terms of having to think differently, but then also when working with entrepreneurs about challenging them to think differently, because sometimes you can get a little bit stuck in this is the way we're going to do it, or this is the way we've done it before. So it's just the little constant reminders that I think create the innovation.
Yeah, so important as well to kind of overcome that retro thinking. We've done it this way before, therefore we're going to have to do it this way this time, or even just challenging the status quo is really important. You've got to have a different mindset to be able to do that. Yeah. Joletta, you've worked with many entrepreneurs, both startup and scale up. How common is it that you see thinking errors, and how do you actually help people overcome them?
Oh, every day, in myself, in the entrepreneurs. And the way that I overcome it is I'm actually a challenger. So if you go through the Y Institute assessment and go deep, I come out as a challenger. So I'm constantly challenging myself, my thinking, and also my clients, the entrepreneurs, which can be a bit painful. But I think around innovation, it's really important to decide whether you want to do something incremental, something disruptive, or something really radical. And so I often get my entrepreneurs to go way, way out long term and say, why are you on earth? What do you actually want to achieve before what I think we say in England, pop your clogs? What do we really want to do? Yes. And so that's how I challenge, get them out of the current, hell, if you will, that they're in their head trash, and then think about the possibilities, the opportunities. And then you see a completely different reflection, completely different way of thinking.
It's so true. And when you talk about that kind of radical thinking aspect as well, there's going to be so many people listening to this across the globe that need to be in that kind of radical thinking camp, because there's a lot of innovation within space that it doesn't even exist yet.
It doesn't exist.
And we've seen it. So, I mean, how can, I guess, question to either of you, how do you move from one state to another? Because you can't always be a radical thinker, right?
Well, you could, but there could be some challenges there. Lucy, you go answer that one.
Yeah, I suppose it particularly in the space, you are having to think and create new things that probably haven't been done before, whereas often people will be building upon something that's maybe been done before. So I think it's about just having the balance within the business of, what is your actual pain point you're trying to solve, and therefore what could be the multiple solutions that you could create. Some of them will be completely radical, some of them might be not as radical, but then working through, well, what is our plan to test those? So again, everything is an iterative process. We heard a lot of people talking about experimenting, and this is all about experimenting in this space, and knowing that some of those experiments are not going to work. But when you start them, know why you're starting them, what assumptions you're making, and what you want to find at the end of them. Then you can say, right, okay, that maybe didn't work. Let's do this next time.
Yeah, absolutely. That iterative process. I mean, it's so important. We've actually got a couple of questions that are coming in from those who are live in the audience. So it would be great to just check those across. What evidence is there to support the difference that mindset makes to your business? So I know a lot of the stuff we're talking about is anecdotal. We as Entrepreneur Spark have worked with thousands of entrepreneurs and seen it firsthand. But what else is out there? Is it just your experience, or is there plenty of evidence out there?
So for me, it's the entrepreneurs that have really been successful. So if you look at the big names, we know them all: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, etc. They've really taken themselves out of the current status quo and said, what can we create? If you think about it, I think about, goodness, what is his name? Alan Curtis Kay, American computer scientist. The best way to predict the future is to actually invent it. Yes? And so look at what those real entrepreneurs have done. They've just taken themselves out and said, okay, how do we do this differently? Some radical, some incremental, and been very successful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evidence.
Yeah, I mean, you look at where the concept came from in terms of Carol Dweck's work, and all of the actual experimentation she did around, particularly around growth mindset and the impact that it had. And that is now why growth mindset is being taught in schools, because it has such an impact. And unfortunately, a lot of the time we lose it as we get older, or lose the I suppose maybe are scared of the failure that you maybe don't have as a child. So it's so important now that it's getting taught and being used as we go into running businesses in the future.
Yeah. And interesting, there's a question that's come in that's kind of bridging that, Gilletta. I'll just come to you because there's a question that says, seems like the mindset could actually be used for a tool of innovation for employees within large organizations. Have you, Gilletta, implemented any tools and ways of nurturing the mindset within larger organizations?
Well, you know, Jeremy, that I worked with Entrepreneurial Spark on this, and it's very similar tools to what you've just shared, you know, the video, and also getting them to start relatively small in their steps. What could you do differently? What are you trying to achieve in this business? Or first, personally, you know, why aren't you being innovative? You obviously wouldn't ask it like that, but it's those first steps as to what could be done differently and why. So there's thousands of tools, but the best methodology that I've ever used is called Appreciative Inquiry, which absolutely takes everyone out of the current space and asks them, you know, what ideally would you and customers and others want as an experience? And how would that work? And it's amazing. And what I was going to say to Lucy was, isn't it amazing that we have to actually bring it back in schools to teach it when it's actually in the baby?
Exactly.
And you can, excuse me?
No.
Yeah.
I would just add to that, Gilletta. I mean, we've worked with a number of corporate organizations in terms of, you know, looking at the growth mindset. And interestingly, coming into my environment now in School of Code, one of the tools that they use and we used was the Disney creative thinking.
Oh, yes, it is.
And I think that's a great tool for anybody out there who's looking for something that can actually get people to dream really big and then bring it down into a problem they can actually solve. So that's a good tool.
And another one is ideation process. That's you know, so another one.
Definitely. I think Lucy Rose, you're talking about the Disney creative process, and that puts you into different rooms, and we all naturally fit into one way of thinking in one of those rooms. It's just a process for actually generating creativity that in those people that are maybe a critical thinker or somebody who just wants to jump to solutions. It pulls you all back from that. And it sounds like it is a really fun process to do, but it helps with larger organizations for sure. Lucy Rose, earlier on you talked about failure and fear of failure. Now, failure is absolutely rife within the space industry. You know, there are so many moving parts to different space businesses that actually we need to be able to approach failure in a different way to make sure that we can get something across the line. What tips have you got, or how can you help people to overcome fear of failure?
I suppose it's just accepting that's a natural part of the process. You know, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, that is what is going to happen, but not looking at it as being setting up as I've failed. It's just like I said before, I am experimenting, and therefore this has one or two outcomes. It's going to work or it's going to not. And either of them, I'm going to learn something. But that's the point. And somebody talked about the reflection after the action. So take the action, but know like why you want to get there, and then have something useful that you've learned at the end of it. So I think that's part of it. So going into it thinking it's just naturally part of the process. And I do think for the space industry, it's going to be even more so, just because of the nature of the arena that we're in. So probably getting comfortable with that. We talk about being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's probably going to be one of the big areas for the group in the space industry.
Definitely. And how can visioning fit in with that way of thinking? There's a question on the Slido talking about, you know, how can visioning help you with creating the right mindset? Either Gilletta or Lucy Rose.
Yes, so visioning is part of what I mentioned before, the appreciative inquiry, and you really get everyone to describe the future that they see and describe it without any, oh, that's silly, we're never going to do that. Just go to that future and describe it, almost as if you're going into an elevator stroke lift on the first floor and the third floor, and when you come out, what does it look like? Who are you talking to? So you can imagine, well, when I land on space, what do I actually want to see? Who do I want to hear? Is there going to have to be language interpretation if there's other life over there? Yes. Yeah. And we've got all of those tools to take the steps in between: lean startup, minimum viable project, iterations, pivoting, you name it. We could just navigate our way to it, and none of that is failure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, talking about the lean startup, Eric Ries puts it really well. You don't, you put in your direction in a TomTom and off it goes. If it hits a barrier, it's not just going to keep on hitting the barrier. You've got the same vision, you've got the same destination. Find another way around. And I thought that's a really, really good way of describing that kind of thinking. You might hit some barriers along the way, but what's the road that's going off to the left that's going to take you around the barrier and start to pivot, think agile, think flexible, and go a different way towards that vision. Yeah, absolutely. We've run out of time, certainly, to speak to the panel right now, but we are going to bring in our entrepreneur, because we want to kind of take the thinking and the learns from the video module and also what we've just heard and apply it to a business. And that business is Stannovation. And we're going to bring in now Alan Whiteside. Alan, how are you?
Hi, Jeremy. Good. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Thanks for being part of this. Do you want to give us a quick, brief overview of what does Stannovation do?
So it's a consultancy I set up 6 years ago now, having worked in innovation in healthcare. So basically, I was like the middleman between the needs of the public sector and sort of technology. And through that, I built up kind of collaborative partnerships and basically kind of transitioning now from having provided consultancy to developing products and services that use enabling technologies such as space to address sustainable development goals.
Yeah. Okay. And from what you've just heard and you've seen on the video module and from what the expert panel have just been discussing, can you recognize any part of those thinking errors and anything within your journey to get to where you are right now?
Yeah, definitely. The need for a resilient mindset. I mean, until COVID, people had always paid me to be innovative. I kind of created my own comfort zone, having set up my own consultancy, as I mentioned, which was after the failure as an MD of a startup called Smart Idea Store, which helped innovators to kind of find people to work with, financing, product development to get their ideas to market through a platform. So yeah, I needed to develop a resilient mindset to deal with both Brexit and COVID. Brexit, because a lot of the funding that we got for Club Innovation came through European funding, but having no support from the Tory government with COVID has led me to pivot and I need to become more resilient, going back to working more with businesses and creating my own products and services too. And I think critically in that, when I'm developing ideas and looking at new markets, making sure that's outside of the UK as well as within it to reduce future risks.
Yeah, developing the right mindset to actually think about where you want to get to. And certainly with the impact of COVID has been absolutely pivotal and instrumental in the way forward. So what did you have to do to change the way you think, the way you operate as soon as kind of COVID hit?
To be honest with you, it was quite difficult because I had been set up to kind of be paid to work with the public sector, and with lockdown impacting and kind of getting no kind of support financially through the past year, working more with different businesses at various stages. Some are kind of pre-revenue startup, some are going for a multi-million pound investment, but you really just kind of get back on the scene and kind of being able to kind of sit between the business and the public sector or the customer if you're not focusing on the public sector, but having an idea of the different aspirations of a collaboration. Because what I found working previously, businesses didn't really think what the public sector were needing when they were developing technologies, and the public sector, because they don't really have, say, like business development staff, aren't really aware of what technology can do, and it can be quite a difficult kind of marriage making. So really just getting a better understanding of that, and kind of using my knowledge to kind of develop technologies that meet a need.
Yeah, interesting. And I want to bring it back to you, the personality, the mindset of Alan Whiteside, and understand what are the thinking errors, what are the things that get in the way on day-to-day basis, because we all have them. I'm sat here with imposter syndrome. Why am I live to so many people? All of this stuff. But what gets in the way of you?
Thanks for reminding me that everyone's watching this, Jeremy. Yeah, I tend to find, I focus on what I like doing. I kind of like blue sky thinking, kind of come up with concepts. And it's like it was really kind of up to others to kind of develop them either into like a grant application or into a program. And I think it's how I go about reinventing myself, so that I appreciate I have a certain skill set. So that's why I kind of collaborate. But yeah, getting outside your comfort zone more and kind of pushing yourself more. And kind of critically as well, I think it's seeing where kind of others can do the same, so that you can kind of do these things together. Because as you'll have experienced the entrepreneurial spark, it's working with the right people with the right attitudes that make these things happen. And it's just being around kind of positive people who have experience as well, because I think that can be a critical matter. A lot of people understand the theory, but have not kind of had to make a sale in order to make sure that their mortgage gets paid. And I think that's a kind of a big thing in the UK system. It's a bit like football, Jeremy. There are a lot of people telling you kind of like what's wrong with Scottish football, but not too many people getting us the next Andy Robertson that will kind of get us back to kind of the good old days.
I'm not even going to go there, Alan. I'm not going to talk about Scottish football right now. But I'm interested in you talked about attitude, and that's a manifestation of a mindset, and how you've realized what you're good at and maybe what you're not so good at. But then you kind of came on to talk about collaborating to kind of bring the strengths that maybe you don't bring to the table around you.
Yes.
How hard is that? Because that seems like, I mean, being able to be aware of your I don't want to call them weaknesses, but maybe things that you're not intuitively do on a daily basis. How difficult it is to realize what you're not great at.
I think it's just kind of been given the option, and I think it's like anything, it's having the reflection, because some things I'm kind of good at that, but other things I'm not, and kind of I have a very fixed mindset. For example, about change, I'm not very good at kind of recognizing things are changing. So for example, that's why I got caught out with Brexit. I thought things like that would be resolved quicker than they were, and when you're relying on these things to kind of fund projects, it kind of was 3 years of standing still. But I think it's having that kind of ability to sort of look for others the same kind of aspirations you have, and a lot of it's to do with the system within which you think. And without kind of getting too political, I find the system in the UK wants collaborative innovation but doesn't fund collaborative innovation. So, for example, with my background in working both with the public sector and in the public sector, we weren't really involved in the ideation. And I had a former boss who said to Innovate UK, you develop products we don't need for issues we don't have, and then complain about it when we don't buy it. And I think this is kind of critical. I was saying in the videos is like, you need to walk in the other person's footsteps and understand why they're going to want your product and service. And I find Europe's better at, not perfect, but it involves the different stakeholders. And it's not just business and public sectors, academia and the public. And it's very interesting the way they're going, and probably might fit in with some of the ideas that you're getting around space and satellite applications, is around the environment. And it's how critical that kind of you understand different stakeholders. They may have kind of different perspectives on it, but it's identifying where the shared issues and opportunities are that's going to make you successful as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea. I mean, we've seen it certainly within a lot of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with. If you don't know your customer, you don't walk a mile in their shoes, and you don't know what pain you're solving for them, then you can lose track of where you're going with the business for sure. And that's a mindset thing. You've got to get into the mindset of your customer for sure. I'm going to bring back in Lucy Rose and Gilletta just to get a few more thoughts from them. But we've got a quick question. And I'll come to you with this one, Alan. I'll tell you what, let's go with this one. What's been your biggest hurdle with your mindset?
I think I kind of it's going back to kind of comfort zones. I kind of sort of stay to stick in it. And I think that's why I kind of got caught out that I was quite happy, as I said, at meeting businesses, universities, working not just for the public sector, but meeting other public sector organizations, and kind of things happened. But I'm not good at kind of looking further ahead. And as I said earlier, being kind of caught out. And I think it's having that reflection, and it was brought up in the previous discussion, it's having these long-term goals. And as you're saying, it's been able to kind of see the road up ahead and realizing that kind of there's a Brexit barrier or whatnot. I mean, COVID's a kind of a different situation because that's unprecedented, but it's having that ability to kind of pivot. And going back to what I was saying earlier about the difference between UK and Europe, Europe has a much better cluster partnership. I find the UK and Scotland has networks. It's organisations that are in a similar area but don't necessarily work together. And I found Europe were just better at kind of pivoting because they're looking ahead, as we've been discussing, to kind of see whether, your business opportunities are going to get bigger because there's going to be a perceived need, or whether you're going to need to change because new technologies are coming out, or kind of people are kind of getting fed up of one technology or kind of looking for the next big thing. It's kind of being kind of, as aware in yourself and kind of being open to these new opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. Gilletta, I can see you nodding through that. Pivoting, innovation, being aware. Would you agree? And words of wisdom.
So I was just thinking about it actually, Jeremy, when Alan was talking. I think one of our biggest problems is how we're taught to measure success. Yeah, so if we actually start to flip that. So I was thinking about in the corporate world where I was an entrepreneur, it was all about salary and job title. And of course, ego goes with that. Now, if you think about, if you start to reframe what success looks like, you'll be quite happy with yourself every day. So, that's how I look at it. Just reframe how you define success and you will not fail.
No, absolutely. Redefining success is huge, but it comes back to, you got to have the right mindset to reframe success in itself. And that goes for any business, be it within the space industry or wider. And right at the beginning, we talked about those kind of adjacent industries that are going to need they need to support the space industry to grow. So more and more people will be able to help and support the space industry and bring in their expert thinking, but their different way of thinking, which can leverage and boost the industry itself. Gilletta, Lucy Rose, Alan, thank you so much for being part of this today. It's been amazing to get your insight, thoughts, tips. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
So that kind of brings us to the end of the module, but that doesn't bring an end to the conversation that we want to have. We talked about that hive mentality and that mindset that people can. What's the common phrase? It's a problem. A problem shared is a problem halved, and I think that's really crucial when approaching things with a mindset angle, but also approaching your next challenge in your business within the space sector, which is why. Well, actually, before we do that, I just wanted to make mention of the fact that any questions that did go unanswered on the feed, we will come back to you in writing and come back to you with an answer. I've just got a slide very quickly just to talk to you about the peer-to-peer session. So I talked about continuing the conversation. Now, on your pages, you will see, if you're watching via the website, if you kind of scroll down, there's some more links to play with. One of the first links is to to the peer-to-peer session, which we're running on Thursday. And that's where you can continue the conversation with peers in your sector. And it continues the topic of how thinking differently can unlock growth in your business. It's on the 11th of March, so this Thursday between 12 and 1:30 p.m. There's a registration link. Click it, or you can use the QR code that's on the screen right now and just continue the conversation. So please do register for that. I wanted to check in on the outcomes of what we've been through today and just find out if we've ticked the boxes. So yeah, hopefully we get a good understanding of what a fixed versus growth mindset is and how it applies to your business. How can you shift your thinking now and develop an entrepreneurial mindset that you need to get over your next barrier, your next hurdle, that iterative thinking. And also, we've discovered those kind of common thinking errors and how to untangle them. So I hope you've got some useful information and maybe some tools that are going to help you to overcome those thinking errors when they crop up next. And they do crop up. We're always after feedback. We have another 7 of these sessions. So please do get your phone out now or whatever you've got to scan a QR code and leave us some feedback by hitting that one. We want to make these as useful as possible for everybody who joins. So please do give us some feedback there. And even more conversation going on over on our Discord channel. There again, if you scroll down on your webpage, there should be a couple of links down the bottom. One of them is to the Discord channel where you can talk to people within the industry, grow relationships. And again, that problem shared is a problem halved. If you're facing a problem, you want an introduction, you want to get somewhere, get over a barrier, go to the Discord channel and start a conversation. The more you talk, the more you'll get out of it. So please do keep the conversation going over on our Discord channel. There's a couple of other things as well. We've got our next Business Horizons session on Monday. They are every Monday, bar the one that falls on Easter Monday, so it's going to be on the Tuesday, with lots of different topics. The next one that we got coming up is building innovative business models. We go through to investor readiness and the funding landscape, but next week's one is all about building innovative business models. There is a link straight off the website, so the way you signed up today, sign up over on the website again. Over at www.entrepreneurial-spark.com/business-horizons, and you'll see that one where you'll be able to sign up for it on the Eventbrite. The other thing I need to make mention of is that the sister program, I guess, to the Business Horizons is the Leo program. More intense, just about a 10-week program of acceleration, mix of one-to-one, one-to-many, and mentor support to get you to the next level. The applications are still open. And if you want to go and visit the website and put in an application, we're looking for people who are either in the space sector or want to be in the space sector, who have some kind of bridge over to it, then please go and apply. Applications are still open for a limited time, and they will close this week. So I guess it just brings me to say thank you so much for being part of today. Keep the conversation going, and we cannot wait to see you on the next session next Monday. Thanks.